That's a train.
Well trained we are.
Hello, I'm Roger Bisbee.
I'm Robin Clevitt.
And we're from the Skill Builder channel, and we've got another track saw review. And this one, I'm just going to explain what happened with this one, is that we contacted everybody, said, we're doing this review of track saws, do you want to loan us a machine for the test? So everybody came back to us, but Festool. And I thought, oh, Festool, perhaps they don't want to play, perhaps we've upset them or something. And I just gave them one last chance, emailed them, and it turned out that my contact at Festool, Phil, was in hospital, so that's why I didn't pick up the email. And he said, oh, I'm ever so sorry, are we too late? And I said, well, you kind of are. I said, don't worry, Phil, I've got one of these machines. We use that because basically it's not a new machine, but we just want to run through it. And you're on home territory here because this is something that you have anyway, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And so I'll just give you a quick, my own personal story of why I bought a Festool TS55.
Should we get it out of the box while we're doing that?
So I, first of all, bought one of these, and it's going back 11 years, I'd say 11 or 12 years. I was making some cabinets out of oak face MDF, and I had about 7 sheets of MDF to cut up into lots and lots of pieces. And I thought to myself, I need to get a rail saw. So I went straight down to the tool shop Saturday morning and I said, I want to buy a TS55. It was what I'd seen on site. I was well impressed with them. So I bought myself a TS55. I set my trestles up, had all my MDF on, had my cutting list here, and I started cutting. And I thought, this is amazing, it's brilliant. Anyway, I stopped for a cup of tea. I looked at my conservatory roof where I was working, and it was just a film of dust. And I was working outside on the terrace near it, and I thought, I should have bought the dust extraction too. So I went back to the tool shop and got the dust extraction. So, but anyway, it was brilliant. I reckon that just in that one set of cabinets that I made, I reckon it paid for itself.
So we've established that you're a big fan of Festool. He's not being paid by Festool.
No,
say that.
Not at all.
You'd like to be paid by Festool, wouldn't you?
Well, anybody, not just Festool.
Right. So I think you're fairly familiar with this machine.
I am. Yeah. This is an upgraded, newer version of mine. It has a couple of things that mine doesn't have.
Well, give us his instruction booklet in there. Do you want me to have a look at it?
You can have a look at that.
Right. So look, you just take us through the features and benefits, and if there's anything you're not sure about,
okay, no problem.
I'll look it up.
So this is exactly the same as mine, obviously, the plug-it, which is great. I like that because if I've got my planer, I'm using that, and I'm using my saw together, I just use that. So I just have one supply, power supply locally, and it's also good for isolating the tool without going to my socket to unplug it. But if I'm doing my blade change, you all know about the blade change. You make sure you've got your depth out the way, you lift up your fixed fast, and you rock it down. You can sit that on the flat there. The blade's automatically locked off, and there you go. You can take it out and pull that out the way, under your blade, whip it out. So that's a nice feature. And then it does spring back a bit quick. So if you release that, it's going to do that. So don't do that, okay? So just
never do that.
You just rest it and gently let it come back up. Yeah. And obviously
because that's that powerful spring there, isn't it? That's doing that.
It's the same spring that enables your plunge. This is different to my previous one. I prefer this one a lot more because in my one I used to have to allow for the thickness of the rail. This one you don't. Okay, so when that's on 0, I'm on the rail. Okay?
Yeah.
When I'm not on the rail, that is 0. Also, as your blade wears a bit, or you've got a slightly smaller dimension blade, you can make some adjustments, fine adjustments.
Yeah, it says on that fine adjustment that what you do is you push it down till it just reaches the worktop. Yeah. So if it's on the rail, you push it down and you've set it at 10 mil.
Yeah.
And then you should just adjust it so you're zeroing in. And the only time you'll need that, according to the book, is if you've resharpened the blade or something. Yeah. So if you got, or you're using another blade, because if you use another manufacturer's blade, because the Festool ones are expensive, aren't they?
They are, but they're certainly worth the money because you can resharpen them, resharpen them, resharpen them.
Yeah. The other thing you've got to watch out for is if you change blades, sometimes the thickness of the blade is different, isn't it? Say you've got a Freud or whatever, and that can play havoc with your sacrificial cut on your rail. Because the first time you get this saw out, a lot of people say, by the way, I don't know whether you agree with this, but when you cut through that rubber first time, just do it on a very small setting, like 2 or 3 mil. Don't go full cut. Yeah, you only want to just go into a bit of stuff underneath, sacrificial. You don't want, you want just the blade to just take it out nice and gently. You don't want to be cutting into it really deeply. It's just because it just rag it up. Yeah,
yeah, just rag it up.
Yeah, so that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always found it runs really well. I've never been unhappy with it at all, to be fair.
Okay. I'm going to find something to make you unhappy.
Go on then.
I don't know. I'll just find something.
Okay, let me just tell you about
lavishing praise on this machine without any kind of.
So basically, if I'm sort of really busy, I'm doing lots and lots of work, and I'm running out and it gets a bit warm, they do tend to say that's enough for a minute.
40 seconds, it says here.
Yeah, and
40 seconds timeout.
Yeah.
You're going in the sin bin.
Yeah, and you just need to sort of like, I mean, generally that's when I'm probably pushing it to its limit.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because some people say this is underpowered. That is a criticism you see time and time again about the TS55, is that it is underpowered. Now, you can get a TS75, can't you?
You can. It's a bigger one.
So the 75 is obviously made for those deeper cuts. It's, you know, if you're ripping into lumber as opposed to just sheet material. But the penalty with the 75 is a bigger beast.
It is, yeah.
And it's a bit, you know, if you're going through sheet material and you don't push your luck, I mean, you mustn't go, you got to let the saw do the work, yeah?
No, I mean, you know, if you're trimming a hardwood door, the bottom of a hardwood door with this, which you can do on the depth, if it's a 44mm door.
Just don't push it.
No, you've got to do it in 2 or 3 passes.
And what would you do there? To dial the speed down a bit as well? Stop the burning?
I mean, if you've got the right blade, so you've got a decent amount of teeth on your blade, certainly do it in a few passes. If you're doing it in a few passes, you can maintain your speed, to be fair.
Okay.
Sometimes, the only time I really use that variable speed is if I put in a blade with this to cut a cement board, a particular blade for that, then you want to take the temperature down a bit.
So there's our little speed control. Yeah. Now this actually sets it, this is electronically controlled. So we talked about the thermal cutout, but it's also got a constant speed, and it will basically look after itself. It'll look after the motor, which is the important thing, isn't it? So if people say it's underpowered, but it is protected, and that will stop the overcurrent drawing. You know, if you're really straining through it and it's trying to draw more current, that would shorten the life of the motor. So this thing stops you doing that. Like you said, you've got the thermal cutout. It gives you 40 seconds out of your hard working day.
Yeah, so this is probably industry, the one you see most on site. When I'm out on site, most chippies who's doing a lot of sheet material work have this particular saw. Just some other little things as well. So this will do a -1 degree cut very simply by just pulling the function button here, and there's another little button on the back. You pull out that. It just gives you, basically it gives you a little bit of a camber for doing a scribe. All right. And that's just released.
Is that what it is for? It's not.
If I was cutting so I've got an M panel on a kitchen, and I'm going to scribe it into the wall. I'm going to rip it down, then I'm going to scribe it in. So I'm going to take some of the stock off it. Basically, I want it to be cut like that. Then when I do my final clean-up with maybe a little hand plane or something like that to shape it to the wall, I'm only taking off.
Oh, okay.
You know, just the front face edge. I'm not trying to plough through, you know, the full thickness of panel.
Okay. So everything green
is a function with Festool.
That's what they tell us. There's no lock-on feature with this, is there?
No.
You know, like if you're doing a bevel cut and you wanted to have that right over.
Yeah, that's a technique you've got to master. Basically, you've got to, you know, you've got to be mindful that the weight of the machine wants to tip it up. So you're going to use your clamps. Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to use your clamps on the rail, but equally, when you're operating it, instead of operating it here, you might find that you tend to
push it down on there.
Yeah, you tend to do that.
Yeah, you're well out the way of the blade there anyway. So let me just say, if you're doing that plunge cut, something I read in the instructions is that as you're doing that plunge cut, the riving knife is pushed up in out of the way, basically, so you're not getting a riving knife. So therefore, there is a tendency or a chance, a risk of the blade jamming and cutting. So what they're saying is that they do actually sell a anti-kickback that goes on the rail, which I've never seen anybody use, but it is available. So what they're saying is if you're doing that plunge cut, and you've got to think about this, because if you're doing a plunge cut in a door, say you're putting a letterbox in or something like that, you don't want to mess that door up. So it's worth getting that little stop there, putting it there on the back end of your cut, where you're starting, attach it to the rail so that it stops it from kicking back.
Because the blade's spinning like that, initially it wants to push
and it'll just push out like that, and then it'll mess up the rail or maybe the door, and that could be very expensive.
An example is you're cutting a hob out for a work surface, for example, and you know you don't want to get any nasty surprises when you're doing that.
Well, even from the point of safety, but also from the point of view of who wants to go and buy another bit of work.
Exactly.
Whatever. Quid. So so that's a little point that they make in the instruction booklet, which I think is worth bearing in mind.
So there you have it, guys.
But the whole thing about riving knives is that they used to be a legal requirement on circular saws and plunge saws, and then under some, I don't know whether it was the EU or international thing, they said no longer required. So that's why a lot of riving knives disappeared from saws. They went, oh, it's not a requirement anymore. But I'm a fan of the riving knife. Stick it in a box. Do you like sustainer boxes or not?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the only thing about sustainer boxes, these things just seem to come out too.
Yeah, they drive me nuts. And also, I've had the hinges, those little plug hinges come out, and you end up having to make your own.
And also, and these seem to wear out as well sometimes.
I'm going to ask you a question, Rob.
Yeah.
This is intrigued me. This plug-it lead, that end, is that the same as a 240 volt?
It's exactly the same.
Right, so if you had another plug-it lead and you were a bit stupid, you could actually plug a 240 supply into a 110 machine.
That's a good point, actually. It's a really good point.
You're in a workshop and you're not paying attention.
Yeah, it's a really
Or you've got an apprentice working for you.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, I quite like that. I've never actually given that a lot of thought, but yeah, you're right.
No, if you've got that mix of 240 and 110 machines, a lot of people don't. If they're 110, they're 110.
So I wonder what would happen if you stuck 240 through it. Would it just cook it?
Yeah, it wouldn't do it much good. I must just say, by the way, to the Americans out there who don't fully understand this, and even people in continental Europe, we're probably the only people in the world who have to put up with this nonsense here. We've got 110, which is for site work, which is 110 voltage. We've also got 240 voltage, which is for domestic and so on. Some guys like to use 240 because they don't have to carry around a transformer. It's a pain in the butt. The whole thing's a pain in the butt. Personally, I think if you've got an RCD, you should be all right, but don't quote me on that. I don't want you coming back if you've been electrocuted. So it's up to you entirely, but I tend to run 240.
Yeah.
Except except with this. Anyway, let's go and test it. 18mm depth. I'll just check in that it's actually accurate on the scale. You've got that fine adjustment, so you can actually get it right to where you need it in terms of not going through anything underneath. So that's pretty good. Okay. Dust extraction. Stick a bit of that. Yeah, but it's got plugged in. Got to put the hose in. Okay. Nice fine cut, no problem there. Right, let's try it in the chipboard. 40mm. I put it through on slow speed first of all, through that bit of chipboard, through the worktop, and it really struggled. It kept stalling and so on. So then I whacked it up to top speed, see how that went. And it went through a bit better, I've got to say, but it still stalled towards the end, which kind of bears out what people say about these Festool machines, is they're not the highest powered machines in the world. So that 1200 watt motor, especially on that 110, is struggling slightly with this bigger job. Obviously, you could go through 18mm sheet all day long, probably quite happily, on top speed. But trying to do anything a little bit heavier than that, you've really got to take your time with it. And if you're in a rush, maybe it's not the machine for you. Robin, I've had a go at this and I just want to know what you think, all right? You give it a spin. I mean, you're a Festool man anyway, right? So this is a 110. Now that blade is pretty damn new. It's done no work.
Right.
Yeah, so.
All right, that's no problem. It's a good cut. I mean, it's a thick material. We're going through a full thickness of work surface there. Hasn't really chipped it out. I mean, it does seem like it's quite slow, but it is. I mean, but if you did that in 2 or 3 passes, scribe cut first, and then a couple of passes with that, no problem at all.
Would you not think that you've got a TS55, which is capable of doing a 55mm depth of cut in what, we don't know, say softwood, but it's struggling to go through 40mm of work?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is
dense.
Yeah,
I know.
It's a dense material. So the answer to the first question, where would I most use that depth of cut? I'm cutting through a door, like a flush door or something like that. I can pass right through, because sometimes they're hollow in the middle. So you want to pass right through, then you can push in the end and put your piece of wood back in. It's probably a work surface. If a kitchen's set out properly, you put it in its full sort of depth. It's only a cross cut that you might introduce or whatever, but or you might be cutting through for your hob or your kitchen sink. But it's quite, I mean, it's at full depth, at full power, which we were on full power, with this particular blade, which I would say is a really good, well, it's a lot of teeth on that, so it's a good fine blade. It might be better with a few less teeth for ripping, as opposed to, you know,
a few fewer
teeth. But that's probably about right for speed of cut, for what you're cutting. So it'd be nice to see what it's like in the just the 18.
All right, look, do us a favour then. Just push it through, maximum speed, all right? Full depth of cut, right? I just want to, because I tried it, I thought, okay, let's give this I've got it on full speed, right? Top speed there, Just give it one more push.
So see as quickly as I can physically, well, not physically go.
Let's just go.
Okay, let's have
go. Let the saw do the work. Yeah. You all right with that?
Yeah, I mean, I went for twice the speed. So, I said the quality of cut's no different, to be fair.
No, it's no burning on it.
No, I mean, there is no burning on that at all. So,
okay.
I think it's just personal preference. I think I'm used to.
I'm just surprised. I mean, I'm going to give it a go. I've been using the Makita for several years, and I guess I'm used to just a little bit more grunt. If you're interested in track saws, we've got this big review coming up where we're going to be looking at all the major brands, the most popular track saws, and we'll be bringing you that roundup pretty soon. So there you are, that's our test review of the Festool TS55 REQ. REQ?
REQ.
REQ. What does that stand for?
Require? I don't know. Anyways, so that was that. And
oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe, because we've got more of these kind of tests and other tests.
And we've got some interesting projects that we're doing as well, which you can see updates regularly.
You're still working hard. You might even finish this place one day.
One day, yeah, before I retire.
But the trouble is, you've got to go out and earn a living, haven't you? All the time.
Exactly.
That's what spoils it. Take it away.
Cheers.